So what are some of the concerns that have been raised by stakeholders during that engagement with them?
I must say the concerns are not new. I mean, it's an age-old concerns. In other words, issues of waste management,
okay,
issues of radiation, whether Ghana is ready to go nuclear or Ghana is not ready to go nuclear. Basically, these are the major issues. Now, on the issue of whether Ghana is ready to go nuclear or not, and whenever this issue comes up, the question I ask myself is, how do we want to be ready? And when do we want to be ready? And indeed, this was what the, I mean, during Nkrumah's time, this is the kind of picture that they actually didn't get. I mean, for other power generation sources, you can go ahead and start and complete within a short period of time. Nuclear isn't like that. The planning to execution to completion and operation will take you not less than 15 years. Even if when you have all your finances readily available. So when we say we are not ready, the question is, how do we want to be ready? And that is exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
So we are not talking about nuclear power plant in Ghana in the year 2021, in the year 2022. We're talking about projecting based on the demand scenario in the country and looking at the future. So the current roadmap is looking at 2030. So therefore, it gives us time to plan, to execute, and make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, and so on and so forth. Now, on the issue of issues of radiation, waste management, nuclear waste is not like a municipal waste. So sometimes you hear comments like, as a country we cannot even manage our domestic waste, and how do we manage nuclear waste? They are completely different. There are systems in place to make sure that nuclear waste are managed, and the reality is that with almost 60 years of nuclear power plant operation in the world, nuclear waste has never become an issue, because the waste are small and they are confined and they are managed within the vicinity of the power plant environment. So it's not like for example, contracting Zoom Lion or waste management organization to come and take the waste and go and deposit it somewhere. So the waste, of course, I mean, if not managed, could become a problem, but nuclear waste has never become an issue anywhere in the world.
Okay.
On the issue of safety, I mean, nuclear power plant, and this is a fact, is, if not the safest, is one of the safest and most safest power generation sources in the country.
Amidst the Fukushima.
Yes, I mean, and we need to put this into context. Okay, so we need to understand what happened in Japan. It was an earthquake,
okay,
followed by a tsunami. The earthquake and the tsunami had nothing to do. It is not the nuclear power plant that caused the earthquake. It is not the nuclear power plant that caused the tsunami. So a typical example, and God forbid, we can have an earthquake near our hydro plant. What will happen to the dam, for example? And if, for example, again, God forbid, if there's a dam break at Akosombo, can anybody imagine what will happen within 1 minute of all the people downstream the dam? It's a lot of disaster. So the fact that there's an accident does not make a technology unsafe.
Okay.
Another example, I mean, I think 2018 or 19, we've had 2 major aircraft accidents. One even in our continent, was it Kenya or Ethiopia? the Ethiopian airline from Ethiopia to Kenya that involved an accident. But I tell you, the air travel is the safest. It's more safer than road, than rail. But in the event of an accident, unlikely accident, the casualty could be higher. It doesn't make the technology unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that, notwithstanding the Fukushima, notwithstanding the Chernobyl, the casualties were very, very low. In reality, in Fukushima, there were no direct death as a result of the complications that came about with respect to the nuclear power plant. All the death that was recorded were either due to the earthquake or the tsunami, which had nothing to do with the nuclear power plant.
So are you trying to say that since, let's assume that since that incident, has there been any advancements in nuclear technology to make sure that it is safer than it used to be?
Sure. And that is one beautiful thing about scientists and engineers, whereas I will not mention the profession, the other professions run away in such incidences and events. The scientists and engineers, when such a thing happens, even though it's not expected and it's something that nobody wishes it to happen, they take an opportunity to understand how it happened, why it happened, and ensure that it never happens again. So in the wake of the Fukushima incident, what most power plant operators, whether in Japan or anywhere else, what they did was to shut down their power plants to really get to understand what is happening and why it is happening. And then once the understanding came, then measures have been put in place to ensure that such a thing does not happen. And I'll give one example. Actually, what happened in Fukushima is that with the earthquake and the tsunami, there were power cuts. Okay, so first the earthquake happened, and all the national grid went off. Now, the nuclear power plant operators all over the world, they have what we call emergency power systems. So with the national grid, going off within seconds, the emergency diesel generators came online, so everything was restored to normal. And then after some few minutes, the tsunami came and washed all the or knock off all the emergency generators, and so there were no power supply to the active systems to provide cooling to the system. So what happened? Now, first of all, with the Fukushima, the same site that had the power plant affected, it was not the only power plant at the site. There were other power plants. The nuclear power plants has gone through generations. Currently, we started with generation 1, generation 2. Now we are talking about generation 3 and generation 3 plus reactors. So the very plant that had a challenge was a generation 2 reactor. Now current reactors use both what we call active and passive cooling systems. Now active means that you need an electric source to power a system to run coolant through to ensure that there is cooling. Passive means the system works without a natural electric source, so it works based on gravity and other considerations. So current generation of reactors, most of them are using passive systems for cooling, and in other instances active systems. Even there are current reactors that is designed such that in the unlikely event of no cooling at all, there is a backup cooling system that can provide cooling for about 3 days, 72 hours or so. So there are a couple of other safety systems that have been put in place to ensure that such an occurrence that happened in Fukushima will never happen. The reality is that for nuclear reactors, for nuclear power plants, so long as you can cool the system to normal, everything is perfect. So all that engineers and scientists are focusing on is how do we ensure constant cooling. So as an example, what has come up with the what incidents at Fukushima is that there are new regulations that put a responsibility on nuclear power plant operators to ensure that their emergency diesel generators are placed at elevations higher than the environments of the power plant.
For what reason?
Yes, I gave you the example of what happened with the Fukushima when as a result of the tsunami, the water, the volume of the water that swept across the compound did not only knock off buildings and the power plant, but also the emergency generators. So, for example, if the emergency generators were at elevations higher than where the power plant was being operated, or at a distance a bit further away from the power plant, this wouldn't have happened. Okay, so these are a couple of things that has come up, and to ensure that such an occurrence actually does not happen in the near future. What happened in Chernobyl provided a good lesson that ensured that the Chernobyl type of incident does not happen. And what happened in Fukushima has provided further insight into ensuring that the safety of nuclear power plant even become more safer than it used to be.
Okay, so with all these technological advancements or improvements in nuclear reactors or whatever, now some people in this country are raising concerns of the fact that it takes a number of years before you are able to establish a nuclear power plant. Some are also saying that because countries like Portugal, Germany, Greece, and other European countries have shut down their nuclear power plants, so there's no point as a country to pursue that agenda. When you hear of these things, how do you respond to those critics?
Good. So every country has a peculiar situation that has to deal with. Okay, so first of all, in terms of nuclear taking a long time in terms of planning, execution, and actually operating, that's a fact. You don't use nuclear to solve an emergency problem. In terms of if the country is facing doomsday and you want to solve that problem, that is not going to be done by nuclear, because you can't shorten the time. Okay, but the fact that something takes a long time to execute shouldn't become a negative factor. That is why there's a need for planning. Okay, so you are planning in terms of the projected demand and sources of supply. So if we go strictly according to plan, obviously time will not become an issue. And the reality is that in 2008, when the then government took that decision for Ghana to really take the necessary steps to go nuclear, it was around the same time, or just about a year before, that the United Arab Emirates also took the decision to go nuclear. And as we speak now, United Arab Emirates, they've commissioned their first power plant, which is on the grid. And there are 3 other power plants that the 4th one is over 70% completed. Okay, so the fact that something takes a long time to execute is not a negative factor and shouldn't be. On the issue of other countries, not embarking on nuclear power plant and so on and so forth, the truth is that Yes, you have a country like Germany that has taken firm decision not to, embark on a nuclear power program, and in actual fact, to decommission their power plants. The reality is that these power plants, everything has a lifespan. So these power plants have almost reached their operational life.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they are decommissioning it. You take a country like US, China, France, they have decommissioned some of their nuclear power plants because it has reached its lifetime. There's nothing perpetual. So the German power plants have almost reached their lifespan, and they are decommissioning it. However, they've also taken a firm decision not to, construct or add additional nuclear power plants to their mix. So Germany basically says no nuclear power plants. But I always say that it's not because the Germans are not technically sound. That is why they say they are not adding on nuclear. It's certainly not. It's more of a political, decision than technical. But the truth is also that Germany, in the event of demand where they needed more power, they source it from France. And France has the largest fleet of nuclear power plants in Europe and in their generation mix. If I'm not mistaken, they are operating over 60 power plants. I'm not sure about the number, but they have quite a lot of nuclear power plants, and they supply to Germany. There are other countries that have decided to, weigh in terms of, the German angle and so on and so forth. But you also have, whilst some countries say, okay, we put in a pause on nuclear, others are also, developing. As we speak now, you have, so far you have about, I think, 2 countries that are currently operating nuclear power plant that before 2019 they were never operating power plants. Talking about United Arab Emirates, you are talking about Belarus.
Okay.
You have a country like Turkey that is also currently constructing their first nuclear power plant. In the African continent, you have Egypt that have signed a contract with Russia to construct 4 power plants. Again, Bangladesh is also constructing a nuclear power plant. Nigeria. Okay, South Africa already has 2 nuclear power plants that are operating, and they are currently also. They actually, took a bold step to actually add about 4 or so reactors to their fleet. But I think there was more some political issue that has to do with the processes of embarking on the what do you call it, the bidding process, and so there was the need for them to look at it again. There are many other African countries that have expressed interest and are at various stages of their nuclear program development. In the West African sub-region, you can talk about Nigeria, you can talk about Niger. You go to other regions of the continent. You have Kenya, which is also seriously embarking on the nuclear program. You have the northern countries, Tunisia, Morocco, and so on and so forth. So there are a couple of other African countries and other developing countries that are also embarking on the nuclear program. Now, what I want everybody to be aware of is this. Let's take sometimes people use the analogy of our oil and gas as we found oil, we found gas, so what's the need for nuclear? I don't think our reserve come near to UAE. Our oil and gas reserve does not come anywhere near what we have, what the United Arab Emirates have. Yes, but yet they decided to embark on the nuclear program. As I said, they are currently operating their first power plant. So we need to think in a broader context. And again, we're talking about energy security. which is very, very important. Because if you build your energy infrastructure on a single or few sources, in the event of any challenge in some of these sources, it becomes a problem to the entire country. And I mean, as Ghanaians, we are all witnesses to the effects of, crude oil prices on every Ghanaian, whether you are in urban or rural area, whether you are working or you are jobless. The effect of crude oil prices in the world market affects all of us. And we're talking about the technology, I mean nuclear, where once you start operating, with respect to the fuel, you are running the plant for a period of about 18 to 24 months before shutting down and doing a routine maintenance in some weeks, about 6 weeks or so, and then you start again. So nuclear is not the type of technology where you need to bring in fuel at short time intervals. And so what it does is that it provides you with price stability. At least for sure, you are sure that within 1 year your fuel can run without the need to reload additional fuel. So that provides you with price stability, and that is something that the industry wants. If I know that within the whole year my electricity tariff is pegged at this amount, it provides you that flexibility to plan. You know that you are not going to incur additional costs as a result of potential increases in electricity tariff or so on and so forth. So the fact that, for example, at the moment we have more thermals in our generation, what it means is that so long as the crude oil prices and gas prices goes up, I mean the generators will have to meet their operating costs, and so obviously the prices will go up and so on and so forth.
So operating nuclear power plants will be a bit cheaper, or in terms of tariffs, to be a bit cheaper than having hydro and thermal power.
The nuclear, all the analysis that we have done so far, actually makes nuclear very affordable and very competitive, notwithstanding the fact that the capital cost is high. That I must be frank, the upfront cost is very high. But when you look at the operation cost and the lifetime of the power plant, and you aggregate it, you do what you call the LCOE, it makes nuclear very affordable. The price for the renewables are coming down, which is very good. The hydros, the reality is that in our country we do not have any large hydro source again, apart from Akosombo. Having exploited Akosombo, Pong and Bui, we don't have any large hydro beyond 120, 150 megawatts. What is available are small hydros that becomes very expensive if you develop it in the context of hydro, for electricity generation alone. So normally in such instances you look at it for dual purposes, for example for power, for irrigation, and for other sources.
Look, there's this argument that if we want to industrialize, then there's the need for us to go nuclear. How do you convince somebody who doesn't understand this whole argument?
Thank you very much. So the nuclear, we're not looking at the nuclear only in the context of electricity. That is the first option. The first benefit, you are having a constant supply of power, uninterrupted, for almost half a 1.5 years to 2 years at constant supply. That provides you with price stability. And so at affordable tariff, that will make industry able to grow and to expand their businesses. And of course, the reliability aspect of it also makes it more comfortable for industries to do further investment. Because I think there are instances where certain investors actually came to the country to do some investment, but because of issues of power, one, reliability, and two, tariff, either they have to fold up at some point or actually did not even start at all. Now, on the other side of it is also that the nuclear also drives other industries along, and that is the beauty of it too.
Industries like
the manufacturing industry, the how do you call it, the cable industry, the service industry. Because, for example, you're talking about, let's say, 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant having close to about 1,000 workforce direct, and that also comes along with the issues of the services that other sectors of the economy can provide to these organizations. So there are a whole lot of industrial drive that comes along as a result of a nuclear power plant.